Welcome, Alex, to Wealth Matters podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very good. And yourself?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining me today. Can you tell my listeners what do you do?
All right. Well, and thank you for having me on your show. I've been looking forward to it all weekend long. What I do is I own a company where we purchase properties in Memphis and in Little Rock. Typically, they're very distressed. We take ownership of the property, fix them up to a very high standard, very close to, what you see on TV shows that flip this house.
Okay.
Instead of flipping for two owner occupants, we're flipping to investors. So we buy the house, we fix it up really nice, address all the deferred maintenance, and then we turn around and sell it to other investors. While we're during that whole entire process, we're trying to get the property leased out. We've got in-house property management. So we basically have all the tools necessary for somebody that's out of state to own property in Memphis or Little Rock and never even have to come here. And that's from start to finish. We've got, like I said, the property management house to manage the operation of the property after the sale. And that's what we do in a nutshell.
Oh, that's great. So let me remind my listeners that, Alex and the Memphis Turnkey are another turnkey providers. And a turnkey provider is who finds, real estate or the single family as well as multifamily properties at lower prices than retail. They renovate or rehab the property, bring it to a good standard, and then find a tenant, place the tenant, and so manage the property as well. So pretty much provides a full service experience. Just wanted to give that reminder to my listeners.
That is correct.
So how did you get into real estate, and how did you get started? Pretty much.
Well, it's kind of a long story, and I'll keep it short. But first of all, it's how did I get started in real estate, or how did I get started doing something besides my normal job? I had a corporate job, 10 years doing corporate work, sales and marketing for a large manufacturer of rough and plumbing materials and solvent cement to join plastic pipe together. Of course, our customers were contractors and wholesalers. So you can imagine when I started with the company around 2001, all the way through 2008, it was a very profitable company. I was young. I didn't know any different. And then all of a sudden, 2008 happened. We're in an industry where we're making products for building, for new construction, and that just died.
No one wants to build, right?
No one wants to build. And what happens when you make a product to build houses, no one wants to build? It created mass layoffs.
Right. Wow.
I was one of the youngest people in the company, and I got to keep my job. And they gave me a promotion, but it only just included more work. But what I did see was people that had been with the company for a very long time that had gotten laid off, 25, 30-year people. They're in their late 40s, early 50s, and had to go home and tell their families that, hey, I don't have a job anymore. Put your resume together. And if you've been with the company for a long time, you start to make a pretty good income. It's like starting over. And that was kind of the first real world experience I had that I was like, you know what, I need to figure something out. I don't want to be in that same scenario. So I've been reading, kind of been on Bigger Pockets and, just watching general real estate shows. But I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it really just kind of was an eye-opening book for me. So basically, long story short, I went out and bought my first property to flip.
That's funny. So I, of course, started after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I know way too many people, so many people, they started after or changed their perspective after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. It's just kind of eye-opening. And then at that same time, I'm working for a company that's laying off people.
Right.
And that's kind of when you figure out the corporate world. I mean, it's the executives, the shareholders, the private equity groups that get taken care of first, and everybody else kind of comes second.
Of course.
Just when I bought my first rental property, like it's actually wasn't supposed to be a rental, we were going to flip it, and we found a tenant, and financing was really easy back then, so I kind of enjoyed it, and then we just started buying rental property, and it just kind of spiraled into what it is today. I mean, never really started out to try to be a turnkey provider and property manager of 750 properties, but
wow,
get into what you're doing in rentals and networking. Next thing you know, you're doing this, and you've expanded, and we went from selling a few investors a year when we first got started around 2009. to selling, we did 140, 120, 140 doors. I don't have that in front of me, that information, but almost, right around 140 doors last year. And we're going to do the same this year.
That's great. So how did you then become an entrepreneur or business owner from from buying your first rental into, building this business?
Well, kind of an interesting story. I find it kind of funny. Like I said, I was working for a company, so I was doing it on the side. My job took me to, I traveled quite a bit into markets like Dallas, Jacksonville, Florida, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, and on the West Coast. And whenever I'd go to these other cities, I would go into other real estate investment groups, REIAs they call them, Real Estate Education Investment Association groups.
Yeah, REIs, yep.
So I started meeting people and kind of talking about Memphis. And next thing you know, they're like, hey, we'd like to own, and it really kind of originated on the West Coast. And individuals were like, hey, I'd like to own property, but in California, it's just not really realistic. The numbers, don't make sense. So we just started buying for other investors, and that's kind of really how you got started. We started off with one or two, and then, just like anything else, once you start treating people right and doing what you say you're going to do, and putting your interest aligned with your client's interest, your business just grows through word of mouth, and that's where we are today. And at some point, about 2 years into it, I quit my corporate job. That was a leap of faith, but the day that happened, it was, I remember that feeling. It was the greatest feeling of my last day of working in the corporate world. And at that point, you just try, and you can't fail. You don't have a check coming in, so whatever effort you thought you did good at in your corporate job, imagine being an entrepreneur times 10. It's just It's 24/7 on your mind, and that sometimes I think that's kind of a curse, but it's how you become successful too. You've got to love what you do, and you got to be driven and always want to improve. And I guess that's a little bit into the secret of our success.
Yeah, you got to be passionate about what you do, right? You have to enjoy, be it a corporate job or when you start your business. That's what I tell my friends, that if you don't enjoy your job, think about something else. At some point, either you would not want to go to that job anymore, or either you would be laid off, or I was laid off same as in 2008. So I have been through this exact same thing as you mentioned.
Well, if you think about it, when you're at a job, even if you hate your job, I know a lot of people that hate their job,
right?
But they still put max effort, because if they don't, they'll get fired. And most people, as an entrepreneur, if you don't like what you're doing, there's nobody really to push you. So you have to love what you do. And if you're doing it just for the money, you're probably not going to be successful either. There has to be a true passion behind it.
I totally agree. That was a golden nugget. Yeah. If you're just doing it for money, it's not going to take you far.
No, not.
So let me switch gear and ask you something. What were some of the highs and lows after you started the business? You became an entrepreneur. What have you seen? What was the highest point? And maybe there were some low points as well.
I don't know if I could, pick out one high or one low. I think as a real estate investor, the high was when we first started buying our portfolio through Fannie Mae financing. Every time we closed on a property, there was a high of buying something, kind of adding to your personal wealth.
Right.
Knowing you're leaving a legacy behind. And then all of a sudden in 2000, and I guess about 9, it was really hard to start buying for yourself. Lending got really, really tight. And maybe into 2010, because I remember my challenge was not having the W-2 income anymore. So, trying to figure out how to start, to continue to build your own portfolio was really tough. And that's what we really wanted to do. And honestly, I never really thought we'd be at this volume level that we are at the turnkey side. So my plan was to build a huge portfolio. So I think it's kind of a low with that lending, but there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows when you're in business. When you transactions that you do well and it's a win-win and your client's happy. Every single time that happens, that's kind of a high you get off of it, especially when the client's really pleased with the job you've done. Being an entrepreneur, you don't have a supervisor to say, good job. So it all depends on, a big high is making your clients happy. because that's no one else is going to tell you good job as a business owner. So I don't know if I've, really nailed that question, but there's just a lot of highs and lows.
Well, that was good. So what did you do to persist, right? How did you keep yourself on track, right? Was there a point of where you were thinking, oh, I don't want to do this, or how did you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, so as an entrepreneur, the one thing that keeps you motivated is you work hard, you produce, you build your business, or you don't eat. That's really, I know it sounds really extreme, and it is. It's not that extreme, but it's, somewhere in there. That's kind of what happens. But when we had a tough time building our own portfolio, it was we went out and found private lending. So we started building by private lending. We found a lot of local banking relationships. So from that angle of wanting to keep how to persist, it's just keep picking up the phone and keep at it and keep networking. So I think that's anytime, and even as a a turnkey provider, we sell properties. It gets a little bit slow. You just kind of you got a plan and you stick to it, and if it's a good plan, things will work out. So it's just how do you ask what steps you took to be persistent. You just stay persistent on yourself and work the plan that you've developed.
And that's a great point you brought up about networking, right? Real estate is a networking business. Most of the businesses are, but real estate is specifically word of mouth, referral, networking. So, I'm glad that you brought up networking.
Yeah, I mean, networking is important. It was important in my corporate days, and it's important now. We've developed a lot of great relationships. We've spoken at a lot of real estate events. And to be honest with you, when I first started into this, I was kind of, speaking in front of a big group wasn't something that I just really wanted to do. It's, I tend to be probably a little more on the introverted side. So to go out there and stand in front of a group of 100 people was not something I really wanted to do. But, you know the things you have to do and you do it. Now, like you said, you're persistent, and actually I love doing it now. And like I said, we've networked at a lot of real estate events, a lot of meetups, in the West Coast, and we'll do some more this year. But networking and developing relationships has just been across the board. That's just important as a business owner.
Totally agree. So can you provide one golden nugget or a tool to my audience about, being an entrepreneur or business owner?
Well, we briefly hit on having a passion for it. If you're going just to be in, just to make money because it sounds like something that's profitable, then you're not going in with the right mindset. You just won't be successful. So I'd say have a passion for it. And also don't be scared of failure. And I think that's the number one reason why people don't decide to be an entrepreneur. They're scared to fail. They're scared to quit their job. So, I'm not saying if you're, go quit your job tomorrow, if you only got $3,000 or $4,000 in your account, you need to figure out what do I need to live on?
Yes.
Pay my mortgage, your car, the essentials, feed your family.
Yep.
Make sure you have that, whatever you think that the time frame you need that, have that in reserve. But the main thing is, believe in yourself. If you've got a good product and a good idea, and you've got a passion for it, you'll be fine. But you've got to kick fear to the curb, and you just got to go do it.
Yeah. So one takeaway for me is don't be afraid of failure. I like that actually, because it's very important. All of us have, everyone has some kind of business idea or some idea on how to make things better, but they're always afraid that, oh, if I fail, what will happen, right? Would I be able to feed my family, or would I be able to go back to my corporate job, or what would I do, right? So it's really important. Don't be afraid. Of course, you want to have a plan of action. Right, as you said that you want to have some reserves, cash reserve, as well as make sure you have money to pay for your mortgage, etc. But once you have plan of action, you have an idea, and if you are passionate about it, there is no time better than now, right? To jump into that.
Yeah, and there's that saying that life's short, and I get the meaning. Say life's short because I blink, and now I used to have three little kids. Now when I'm still little, I've got 4, 8, and 10, and it seemed like yesterday they were all babies. But
Yep.
really, so I get that saying life's short, but really it's not that short. So life's a really long time. I mean, most people live to be in their 80s. So if you had a failure somewhere in your mid 30s, between 34 and 35, you've got another 45 years to correct it
Thanks.
before time on this earth is done. So. Like I said, I get the saying life is short, but it's really not. So if you did have a failure, and people do fail,
Oh,
uh,
yes.
but you can bounce back. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, a great point. Walt Disney failed like 17 times, right? No one was ready to accept his scripts and whatnot.
Yeah.
Same way, if you look at, KFC or McDonald's, they all failed, right? But where they are, right? But because they were passionate and they wanted to make these things work. Um, that's a great point.
It's funny you mentioned McDonald's, and I've seen the movie. I don't know if you've seen the. Have you seen the movie The Founder?
Oh, of course, it was a good movie, definitely.
It's a great movie. I just was bored this weekend. It rained really hard in Memphis, so I watched it again. And one of the things that Ray Kroc said is just he said that I'm persistent and I want to win. And
Yes.
you got to have that winning attitude.
Yeah, you can't lose if you have a winning attitude and you're persistent. I don't think you can lose. You can fail, but you can bounce back, right?
Yes, that's right.
So
And he
that's
did.
all good.
Yeah, he's a perfect example.
Oh, yeah, he is a perfect example. Okay, so I'm going to switch some gears because I don't know a lot about Little Rock market. And of course, a lot of people know about Memphis already, as you mentioned. But why Little Rock? What's going for Little Rock right now?
Little Rock is it's 149 miles west of Memphis, and that's where we started in Memphis. But we've been in Little Rock now for, I believe this is our 5th year. The cash flow in Little Rock is really good. We're starting to sell as many properties in Little Rock as we do in Memphis, and Memphis tends to be that household name. And Little Rock kind of flew under the radar, but more and more people were starting to figure out that it's a good market to invest. Very steady economy. So in 2008, when the economy tanked, a lot of housing prices dropped.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, in Memphis, our prices are just now coming up to where they were pre-bust by 2008. In Little Rock, we haven't seen that kind of appreciation, only because there wasn't that big of a downturn. And that's a more diverse economy. I mean, every city has these things that make them tick. If you're oil and gas in Dallas or Houston, Memphis tends to be a logistics town, but Little Rock's got a very diverse economy. And I always hate to kind of name off these things like number 3rd city, but and all these things you see on all these other people's websites where they rank their city. But reality is, Moody's Magazine, which is a very reputable publication,
Right.
Little Rock is the number 2 most diverse economy in the United States, only number 1 to Chicago.
Really?
So if there's a downturn in the economy, yeah. So if there is a downturn in the economy, there's different sectors, but it's just not it wouldn't have felt as bad in Little Rock, really the state of Arkansas, as opposed to other markets. So very diverse economy, a huge healthcare market. So being in Arkansas, Little Rock is the state capital. So a lot of government jobs, but all the healthcare runs through Little Rock. So if you have to get a open heart surgery, you're likely getting that done in Little Rock.
Okay.
Minor medical procedures, of course, you could do those in the outer lying communities, but Little Rock tends to be the hub. You get a sick child, you're coming to Little Rock. So, those things, is what kind of drives the economy. The property taxes are really cheap in Little Rock, really cheap. That helps on the cash flow.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So how do you compare property taxes? Is it like 1% of the purchase price, or is it less than that?
It's a little bit less than 1%. So
that's good.
It varies per neighborhood. They do.
Right.
They base on assessment. A lot of times, most of the times, the county assessor is really off. I'd say if you're evaluating a property in Little Rock, if you were to use that 1% rule, so if you paid, $100,000 for a property, $1,000 for the year is a pretty good estimate. Some will be less, some will be more. So the property taxes are cheap, and so are the landlord laws. interesting story that Arkansas is a debtor state, and they've changed the landlord laws a little bit. It's still very landlord friendly, but a few years back when we first got in the market, if you didn't pay your rent, really the process was, rent's due on the first. If you wanted to, you could have gone down to the prosecuting attorney, filed that they were late on rent. The prosecuting attorney gives it to the sheriff. They put a note on your door. In 3 days, you got to be gone.
Wow, that's
For
fast.
days. If you weren't gone, you could get arrested.
That's
So,
fast.
that sounds terrible. Really,
Yeah.
if you're a landlord, that sounds good. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about basic, rights that people need and have, it should be a little bit stricter. And it's turned into more of a judicial process, but still that process is pretty quick. You could still have somebody out in 30 days or less. And a lot of times we just still put that 3-day notice to leave. And even though we've still gone through the paperwork of filing what's called an FED, a lot of the tenants just don't know and they just move. So
Oh, wow.
we don't have evictions that often. That's, comes down to good screening and great property management, which we have. But, it happens. You own enough properties, those things happen.
Of course.
Certainly helps when you've got friendly eviction laws, and not to mention, low property taxes. So if your property's sitting vacant, those costs don't add up on you.
Yeah, no, I like landlord-friendly states, and I live in California, one of the most expensive, and on top of that, a tenant-friendly state. One of my friends just took about 8 months to evict a tenant, and the property was trashed, of course, after 8 months. And I think he's spending like 40 grand on the property as well. So he lost rent worth of similar to about 20 grand over 8 months, and spending another 40 grand to get the property fixed. So, as a landlord, as a rental property investor, of course, I'm always looking to invest in landlord friendly states.
Yeah, I can't see that I could ever invest in a place where it wasn't landlord friendly. It's just too risky. Even though it doesn't happen often, but things happen in people's lives. Anybody's control. Somebody loses a job and, they can't afford their rent. If they're going to stay there for 8 months, that could take you years to get back the lost cash flow. So, landlord friendly is just absolutely necessary to, it should be one of the number one criteria of, where you want to invest. Something else I'd like to point out about Little Rock is, like I said, we're in Memphis too. Memphis has always been a renter town. Even when we got in the business, it's been over 50%, and that number's kind of ticked up too. But in Little Rock, when we first got in the market, it was somewhere in the mid, let's call it high 30s, low 40s. And the number of renters coming into the market is increasing year over year. I think last I checked, we're at 46% of the those living in Little Rock are renters. So there's more of a demand for rental property. And when you go to our website, you'll see the kind of rehabs we do. And if you just go to Zillow and kind of check what other houses look like in Little Rock versus what our houses look like, you'll see a huge contrast of what these properties look like. So we're putting a premium product with granite new countertops, granite new cabinets. And then you look at a lot of the other rentals we're competing against, and it looked like, grandma died, left her kids, no one could figure out what to do with it. And was like, all right, and they made this, let's go ahead and rent it out. And you've got like shag carpet, yellow countertops, it looked like something, almost out of like a Brady Bunch type area. So if you get more renters in the marketplace, renters are no different from homeowners. They want to live somewhere nice. And so we're answering a demand, providing quality rentals within that market.
That's awesome. So what are the top 3 things which differentiates Memphis Turnkey from other turnkey providers, be it in Little Rock market or Memphis market? What do you do differently, or what stands you apart?
So, if you want to talk about one thing in the Little Rock market, what makes us stand apart, it's the rehab.
Oh,
We
okay.
have some competitors now in Little Rock that we did have, but still, we're the ones with granite countertops, brand new cabinets. So that really does make us stand out, and we do a great job in the Memphis market for, the renovations look very similar, but we don't put in granite and we don't, we can restore a lot of the cabinets, but even the rehabs that we do in Memphis are considered top of the line. But in Little Rock, and we have a lot of good competitors in Memphis. So there's a lot of good products out there, but in Little Rock, we don't have a lot of competition, and the ones that are coming in are not really doing what we do. So I'd say, the renovation makes us stand out. I think the management in Little Rock and in Memphis, all the individuals that work within the offices, the owners, they're investors too. And all we're doing is an extension of our personal investment philosophy. So I'd like to think that we're all good investors, and we know what we're doing, and that's all our management company is just an extension of that. So I think our management, we've grown the management company in both markets outside of just the homes we sell. I think that's really based on reputation. So, rehab, management, I think it's just, saying about the product. If you go on sites like Bigger Pockets, you'll see nightmare story of turnkey providers.
Oh, yes.
And it gives us a bad name. And I think that's real estate in general. You always have a lot of bad players in real estate. I don't know why.
I have bad experience, and I've shared that on my podcast before.
Yeah, we don't, you would think everybody would. We truly care about the reputation, but we do. We're going to do what we're going to say. And, to me, when you own your business, it's just an extension of who you are, of how that company operates on a day-to-day basis, the values. So I think these businesses are an extension of us. And although a lot of your listeners have never met me or met the other owners in Little Rock, Brian and Jamie, I think once you get to know us, you know that we're good people, and we're wanting to do our investors well. So I think really what makes us different is just that wanting to build that relationship, wanting our clients to truly succeed, and not look at this as we're not just house flippers. We're operating a sustainable business through building relationships and doing what we say we're going to do.
Got it. No, that's great. Those are some of the top things, of course, every real estate investor want to see in their turnkey providers. So how can my listeners reach out to you or find out more about your business?
Okay, our website is turnkeyinvestproperties.com. Like I said, the company is Turnkey Properties with offices in Memphis and Little Rock. And speaking of offices in Little Rock, we just opened our new office. We encourage everybody to come visit us. We've got a fantastic office in a really nostalgic part of town in Little Rock. But go to that website, turnkeyinvestproperties.com. There's a phone number, 901-410-5452. That'll ring our Memphis office, and we handle all Memphis and Little Rock inquiries out of the Memphis office. And there's also a link on our homepage. It says schedule a consultation. Just click on that, and Andrew Akins will be happy to have a consultation with you. Just go over, we've got warranties in place when you buy a property. We stand by what we do, and just kind of go into the details of, where we operate, how we do it, how we stand by our product, and answer any questions that you may have.
That's great. Thank you, Alex, for joining me on today's podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. So this was nice, and had fun, and looking forward to the next time we could get together, and actually when we can meet in person.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Have a nice day.
All right, I'll pass. Thank you.